Activision has responded to the CMA's findings, and so have a lot of people. There has been a lot of spice over the last few days. Let's talk about everything that has unfolded right now. So first up, let's start with the Activision reaction to the decision that the CMA came up with. Lulu Chang-Maservi is back at it on Twitter. She said the CMA's updated provisional findings show an improved understanding of the console gaming market and demonstrate a commitment to supporting players and competition. Sony's campaign to protect its dominance by blocking our merger can't overcome the facts. And Microsoft has already presented effective and enforceable remedies to address each of the CMA's remaining concerns. We know this deal will benefit competition, innovation, and consumers in the UK. I've said from the beginning, I think that this deal is a good deal because it is going to force Sony to compete on a more even playing field with Microsoft. I think the main argument for Sony that people continue to say is that Sony fosters game developers and then they acquire them. That's okay. But when Microsoft just buys somebody, that's not okay. I actually think both are okay. If a company wants to sell to another company, regardless of the circumstances of that partnership, that's their business. And if that's what they want to do, great. And this Activision deal specifically seems like it's going to be beneficial to everybody involved. It doesn't seem like third-party games that have been releasing cross-platform are suddenly going to become Xbox exclusive. Like Call of Duty is not going to become exclusive. We know that at least for the next decade. And let's say at the end of that 10 years, Call of Duty did become exclusive. Sony will have to come up with a shooter to compete with that. And you know who they have? They have my favorite developer on their side, Bungie. Bungie makes the shooter I've put thousands of hours into. I'm not a big fan of Lightfall right now, but I still play it all the time. Like I can't put it down. So if Bungie has that secret sauce and they're owned by Sony, I do think that Sony could come up with something really special that could eventually compete with Call of Duty. But I also don't think that's going to happen. I don't think at year 11, all of a sudden, they're going to rip Call of Duty off the PlayStation brand. But that was just one of the reactions. Lulu also tweeted something about the Brazilians. I don't understand the context of this tweet, but people seem to think it's gaming related. Anyway, happy weekend to everybody on here, but especially the Brazilians. Brazil, as you know, cleared the deal without any sort of concessions. They were one of the first people we started talking about on this channel. I guess I'll link to that one up here. You can go check that out. Cade approved the deal without concessions. They knew what was up, and it was a very, very interesting trial through and through. So that's what the Activision side said. Here's what Brad Smith had to say about the findings from the CMA. We appreciate the CMA's additional, detailed, and objective analysis. Its provisional update underscores a growing consensus by those with access to the most current data that this deal will create more competition in the console markets, not less. And it will. Xbox Game Pass is going to look better than ever. Sony's still going to have these amazing exclusives. Time will tell if Sony's telling the truth that the money that they make from COD, which they will probably still make because it's going to still release on PlayStation, will that still be invested in their gameplay experiences like God of War Ragnarok and other games? Or are they blowing smoke? Time will tell on that one. You know what's not blowing smoke? Hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell does help this channel grow. But if you already subscribed, you can also hit that like. It is a real thing. The YouTube algorithm, when you like a video, they're like, hey, people seem to really like this video. Maybe we'll share it a little bit more. And then in addition to that, let's talk about the Florian Mueller tweets over the last few days, because he's had some pretty spicy takes. He said, UK CMA determines, as did DG Comp, that Microsoft Activision Blizzard presents no risk of vertical foreclosure in video game console market. Where do we go from here? The console market theory has been dismissed 7 times. 7 times. How many times does it have to be dismissed? I think the point he's making, and he made earlier, is that basically Sony has lost control over the narrative. They tried to spin a narrative that this would be very bad. They made people pay a lot of attention to them, and now they've looked into it, and Sony was wrong. After MLX and the future times. Anyway, Reuters now also confirms Microsoft's remedy offer to the EC does not mention Sony. In other Activision news, Epic's Tim Sweeney welcomes Microsoft mobile app store plans. Sony has lost control over the narrative. The conversation has moved on. PlayStation's not even being considered in the EU conversation anymore. They're addressing the wider market. So they're not even listening to what Sony has to say. So he talks about what's next in the UK. The console-related part of Microsoft's remedy offer to the CMA is no longer needed. It all comes down to cloud gaming, where the fact that Microsoft has already concluded multiple access deals with Nvidia Boosteroid and Ubitus must be considerable weight. How many people do they have to say, sure, you can have access to Call of Duty on your cloud gaming platform. We don't care. They're handing out these deals like they're candy. Nintendo signed a deal, Boosteroid, Nvidia, Ubitus, like that's 4. There's a deal on the table for Valve who said, we don't need it because we trust you. Like it would be dumb of you to remove Call of Duty from the Steam platform. That doesn't make any sense. You would lose money. The CMA has mathematically proven that it makes no sense for them to remove Call of Duty from PlayStation because they would just lose too much money. So now it's this cloud gaming conversation, and they've already largely addressed that by allowing access for the next 10 years. So I have to imagine late April, we're going to be seeing that this deal goes through. He continues. What's next in the US? Technically, Sony's PlayStation foreclosure theory has been dismissed 7 times by now. Besides the clearance decisions in Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Serbia, and Chile, the EU Commission's and CMA's rejection of that theory, there was also an order on a motion to dismiss in the Northern District of California. So there was that gamers lawsuit, which was dismissed in the Northern NorCal, as we call it here, District of California, meaning how many, it's not a compelling argument and it's not working for them legally. Like whatever you think about it personally, it's not working with the branches of government that they're making this case to. So they should probably make an adjustment. Well, the whole other video, my collar was popped. So we'll just, somebody will make fun of that. Sure. What should Sony do? Earlier this week, I tweeted that Sony has lost control. Let me make this a little larger. Sorry. Earlier this week, I tweeted that Sony has lost control over the narrative, an observation that was picked up by a bunch of people with all that has happened since it has been validated. Sony's problem is that its own practices are now potentially coming under scrutiny, as I made in a previous video, or the one that comes after this. I haven't decided when to release them yet. The question of whether Sony maintains monopoly in the Japanese market, if one adopts its own preferred market definition of high-performance video game consoles, came up in the United States Senate. Sony imposes very restrictive rules on game makers. Many of those who support Sony in the public debate over the acquisition of Activision Blizzard don't even have an idea that, and that's because Sony also, through contractual restrictions, prevents people from finding out. I quoted several passages from the Epic versus Apple judgment in a Twitter thread. Let me quote them again here. I actually made a whole video about this. This is where we found out that game developers are charged for having their games on other platforms. So if you're making money on the Xbox platform, I believe the way it's phrased, Sony considers that a loss of revenue on their platform, and you have to pay if people buy your product on Xbox. It's crazy, right? If I'm not having a correct understanding of that, let me know, but that sounds nuts to me. For all Fortnite transactions via the PlayStation Store, Epic Games agreed to make additional payments to Sony above this commission rate based on the amount of time that PlayStation users play Fortnite cross-platform. Sony, for instance, enacts a cross-play policy that compensates Sony where players spend on other platforms, but primarily game on Sony's PlayStation platform. Meanwhile, Sony and Switch have enacted policies that limit the cross-wallet functionality across platforms. So if you buy V-Bucks on PlayStation, you're supposed to spend it on PlayStation, I have to imagine would be what it would entail. Cross-purchase allows Fortnite users to buy V-Bucks or virtual currency on one platform and spend them on another platform. Cross-purchases are not available on Sony or Nintendo platforms. Epic Games believes so strongly in cross-platform play that it threatened litigation against Sony for using policies and practices to restrict the same. It's like, that's the kind of stuff Sony has been up to behind closed doors, and I'm sure Microsoft has some dirty laundry also that we'll discover eventually through these dealings. But that's what Florian Mueller is pointing out. These practices are now going to be looked at more closely by the competitors. So let's see. I think there was one more thing he mentioned. So at the end, well, Sony missed the best opportunity for contributing to an amicable resolution of the issue. It would still make sense to simplify things for the EC, the CMA, and the FTC now by working out a deal and endorsing the acquisition on that basis, just like Nvidia did. Nvidia also approved it, did not approve of the deal and now does. Better late than never, and the window of opportunity is potentially closing fast now. The main negatives, if they don't sign that deal, are Xbox could bring back console exclusivity. They could lose that parity opportunity where PlayStation Plus players get the game on their platform and Xbox players get it via Game Pass, right? If they don't sign that contract, they're like, sure, you can charge $70 for Call of Duty on your platform. We're putting all of it on Game Pass. As far as I know, there is nothing in any of these agreements about not putting Call of Duty on Game Pass yet. But Sony is setting themselves up to not be able to offer that to their users. Sony's actionable recourse could be not allowing Call of Duty on the PlayStation brand, period. That would be on Sony. Like I'd be very curious to hear how PlayStation gamers would feel about that. Why can't I have Call of Duty anymore? They're not going to know. Like most PlayStation gamers are not going to know. It's because Sony refused to allow Call of Duty on their platform because Microsoft owns it. It would be like Microsoft saying, we don't want MLB The Show because PlayStation owns the company that develops it, right? Like, I don't think that happens. But that is a recourse that PlayStation could take. Time's going to tell on that one. So that's been sort of the fallout over the last few days. If you want to see hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you haven't yet, hit that like button if you like this video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all the topics brought up today. Thank you to the members. I really appreciate you watching and supporting the channel. If you want to become a member, you don't like the ads, click that join button. I got to like redo this overlay. This is like a super old video. You can see like all the crazy stuff. Anyway, hit that join button and all the ads are removed. Thank you so much. Here's the video from yesterday. Well, I'm not sure which one I want to link to. I'll link to the one where the senator situation came up. So check out the senator that is questioning it. And now Sony is going to be looked into a little bit closer, I believe, because of the lobbying they've been doing. Now there's sort of a microscope under Sony like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we should be looking into you too. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you for the next one. Bye for now.